Hey, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom. This is your brother, Quadar of GMS Gulf Coast. I'd like to start by giving all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High and His Son, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakah Quadash. Double honors are given up to the apostle, elders of Great Millstone, men who have labored and suffered in this truth for over 30 plus years, making their lives and their bodies a living sacrifice. I also like to send a shalom to the hopefully elect 1/3 of the nation of Israel, scattered throughout the four winds of planet Earth, which consists of men, women, and children, in that order, as well as the various GMS camps, bishop, elders, heads, and last but not least, I'd like to send a shalom to any of you Akim not named GMS, but walking one body, one spirit in Yahweh Shai, preaching and teaching this 100% truth as it is taught to us all by the apostle elders. To you all, shalom. Hey, Adawan Radazah, Lord's will, this be edifying and not too long. But nevertheless, I wanted to just have a little quick conversation about America's descent into chaos as she, speaking of America, known in the scriptures as Babylon the Great, has fallen out of favor with all her so-called friends. They called them allies, and I dare to say all, because we know there's going to be a few lingering, like the Israelis, first and foremost. They may be true buddies, bosom buddies, and to the very end, those two, America and the Israelis. But overall, just overall speaking, the United States is losing traction with a lot of her so-called allies. And I use that word loosely because you can't be a friend of someone while at the same time holding trash over their heads or got a gun to their back. And this is the only way that you get them to cooperate, you understand? And we know that the United States has always been about some type of tricky or technology, whether it be regime changing, overthrowing of governments, creating these fake proxy wars to go in and rob the people of their resources and whatnot, so forth and so on. You know that track record. So when I say they're friends, they're so-called friends. People like Japan, in the mid-40s, the United States used nuclear weapons on these people. You would think they would want to get some bit back behind that, because even to this very day, the offsprings of those people who were nuked are still being born with certain birth defects behind the radiation and whatnot. So, it's hard to call them a friend, when you've done these type of atrocities to people, they're looking for some get back. And the Lord is going to use these other nations to get back, to do his will. Now, there's a skirmish going on south of the border, Mexico, which would be the tribe of Issachar, which is an Israelite, a tribe of the 12 tribes of Israel. So they're Israelites of the Northern Kingdom. Anyway, I'm going to let you listen to the president of that country. And how everybody just got it in for America. This is basically, the Lord's will shall be done. And he will use these other nations to fulfill his will. Anyway, let's play the play.
Nosotros no vamos a permitir que intervenga ningún gobierno extranjero, y mucho menos que intervengan fuerzas armadas de un gobierno extranjero en nuestro territorio. Nada más decirles que o cambian su trato hacia México, o desde hoy comenzamos con una campaña.
Lock it real quick. If any the northern nation may be watching this, preferably any so-called Mexicans or Hispanics, listen to what this man is saying. Now, he may come off He looked like he may be of the descent of the Mestizos, you know. But who's to say? I just put that in there. But listen to what he's saying. The treatment of Mexican or Hispanic people in the U.S. Mexico has always been a willing participant in whatever the United States has going on as far as diplomatic, whatever the United States has going on, they you know, on board. You follow what I'm saying? But it seems as though the attitude, the atmosphere, the posture, the body language has abruptly changed. You understand? And these people don't have any type of might. And when I say these people, I'm talking about the Israelites of the Northern Kingdom, of the tribe of Issachar, you know, which are Israelites. So I'm not trying to be out of place when I say these people, because these are our brothers. You follow me? But getting back to the point, he says starting an information campaign in the United States so that all Mexicans or our fellow countrymen know about, you know, that they're not going to stand for the mistreatment that's been going on as far as that border issue has been going on. And it got ramped up real bad during this past administration, Donald Trump, where it was actually separating families. And quiet is kept now. I don't have any proof of this, but, you know, that may be still going on as Issachar is making his way to the southern border of the United States there, along the Texas-New Mexico line there. They may be still using these tactics, which further shows that you are Israelites as well, you know, separating, you know, taking the children and sending the parents back or whatever, however they doing that down there. And not only that, they got all these immigration laws, these illegals, you know. You can't go anywhere here in the U.S. without hearing these so-called white people, these knuckle-dragging cave maggots, which are biblically known as the Edomites, you know, talking all that proud talk about them people and this, that, and the third, you know, all that lofty, proud, and you know, nose in the air type of talk. It seems that everyone is fed up with this man. And when I say this man, I'm talking about these white folks.
Campaña informativa en Estados Unidos para que todos los mexicanos, nuestros paisanos, sepan de esta alevosía, de esta agresión de los republicanos a México. Y si continúan con esa actitud, vamos a estar insistiendo de que ni un voto de mexicanos, de hispanos, que ese es un pueblo independiente, soberano, costó mucho. De allá donde están hablando, todo eso era de México, porque ayer fue el colmo. Es que, según el informe que me presentaron hoy por la mañana, este señor se atreve a decir que van a utilizar las Fuerzas Armadas de Estados Unidos para...
And the reason that the United States is talking about invading Mexico is, I had that point, I had that article drawn up. They're starting to see the descent, you know, the separation, you know, of these Western countries over here, you know, Central America, South America, Mexico, you know. They're starting to see that these people are separating themselves from these Americans, man, you know, and for good reason, you know. And so from that point, you know, the Republicans are shouting loud and proud that they're willing to send in armed forces because the relationship between Mexico and the United States is starting to deteriorate. And if that deteriorates, then, you know, Mexico going to have to look to someone that's more powerful than themselves, or equally powerful to the United States, or more powerful than the United States to befriend. So, of course, these Edomites, these knuckle-dragging cave maggots, these so-called white people over here in the U.S., they're going to get up in arms about it. And that goes to show you, these people are never your friends. That's why I said their allies are so-called friends. Because everybody has a bone to pick with America. And like I said in the beginning of the video, the Lord is going to use these kings, these nations, to fulfill his will against these proud Edomites, especially the ones in the West.
Introducirse en nuestro territorio. Es una invasión y podríamos acudir a la ONU. Por eso estamos iniciando. ¿Sí? Queremos ver incluso la reacción de otros legisladores del Partido Republicano. A ver qué opinan.
Now this is another clip, and this is dealing with the Middle East and those leaders over there, and how the coming together of old rivals is actually worrying the Western powers, most importantly, America. This goes back to that point that the United States of Slovakia, the Lord, the Heavenly Father, Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua, is going to use these other kingdoms to bring this place down, to fulfill his will. He's going to use these other kingdoms to fulfill his will against the United States. And we're watching these things unfold. We're watching prophecy unfold. Whether we know that or not, this is what is happening. The Lord's will is being fulfilled. Now check this out. Syrian president visit UAE, making his first visit amid tensions that they've had with one another going back to the Reagan administration. Now you have to study that history going back 2, 3, 4 administrations. You'll find the meddling of the United States, where they're propping up lapdogs over there in the Middle East, including Saddam Hussein, you know what I'm saying? And every 10 or 15 years or so, they have to come back behind themselves and wipe the plate clean and reestablish another stand-up dummy for the U.S., But it seems as though those days have come to an end. And these people are starting to unite. They're starting to see that old saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, has become my friend. They have become so-called friends, allies, for the greater good of, quote unquote, for their own stability or own livelihood. But we know in the end that the Lord is going to put everybody in their rightful place. And that is slavery if you're not an Israelite. Anyway, let's play this.
Now, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad is in the UAE on his first visit to an Arab nation since the Syrian civil war 11 years ago. On day one of his visit, Assad met with UAE's Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, and according to UAE state media, the two leaders discussed fraternal relations between both the sides and also discussed efforts to contribute to the consolidation of security, stability and peace in the Arab region and the Middle East. The Crown Prince and Assad discussed ways of preserving the territorial integrity of Syria and the withdrawal of foreign forces from the country. They also talked about means of providing political and humanitarian support for Syria.
Driving out the foreign forces. During the Obama administration, man, they was heavy on Assad, on the Syrian president. They had even put out a false claim saying that he had used chemical weapons against his own people, when in actuality it was the U.S. Go read up on it. And as you find the track record of the United States or the Western powers, they will always provide or use chemical war or chemical weapons against the people that they're beefing with, and they'll try to blame it on the leadership. They did the same thing in Ukraine, but Russia came Russia come out and spilled the beans first and said that the U.S. by way of NATO is planning on using chemical weapons in Ukraine and gonna blame us for it. So that really never came to fruition because the United States, the Russians got ahead of them on that. But they said the same thing about Saddam. They said the same thing about Gaddafi. They said the same thing about Assad, the Syrian president. And it just keeps going on and on and on. But the American people have a short memory, 5-second memory, They're waiting on the next Super Bowl or whatever, distraction they got going on. Anyway, I want to pause this and go to another one.
And as Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin try to cobble up that new alliance, West Asia also is witnessing a major transition. Old rivalries are fading in the face of new temptations. Old enemies are becoming friends all over again. Just to put this simply, the Arab world seems to be uniting for a common cause. And what is their cause? The same as China's and Russia's. Countering Western hegemony.
Countering the West. It seems like as though these countries that have aligned themselves with the beast, with this whore, pursuant to Psalms 83, verses 1 through 4, it seems that they're coming to their senses here in these latter days. But mind you, the Most High, Yahweh, by way of his only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, the Heavenly Father's will shall be done. And he's using these nations, these kings, to bring about his will. So what we're witnessing is actually of the Lord. Not of their own willpower, not of them. It is of the Lord.
Standing up to American domination. So what exactly are they doing about this? Well, they are bolstering their ties. Just have a look at some recent developments. Over the weekend, something unusual happened. The president of Syria visited the UAE, Bashar al-Assad. He went to Abu Dhabi on Sunday and met his counterpart, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. This, by the way, was Assad's second trip to the UAE in as many years, and it came right after a visit to Oman last month. Now, interestingly, Assad did not go there alone. Accompanying him was his wife, Asma al-Assad. In the world of diplomacy, this was perhaps a signal that Assad is open to forging closer ties with the UAE. Now remember, Syria is not the best of friends with Oman and the UAE. It has in fact always been closer to Iran, so much so that today the country has become a battleground of sorts for a proxy war between the Shia Republic and the Sunni Sheikhdom. So when the Syrian president visits the UAE, questions are bound to be asked. Questions like whether Syria and the UAE have achieved a détente, whether they have decided to mend their differences, and whether Syria is returning to the Arab fold. Well, the president of the UAE left little to doubt. Just have a look at the statement that he made. I'm quoting from it. Syria has been absent from its brothers for too long, and the time has come for it to return to them and to its Arab surroundings.
Syria has been absent from its brothers for too long, and the time has come for it to return to them, to its Arab surroundings. And I'm going to show you a clip where one of the generals, one of the head dogs of the United States military, is, they're showing that they're troubled by this. These arrogant peckerwoods, they act as though they're not shook by anything. But hey, you've seen that clip about Mexico. Mexico don't have no no military that can stand up against the United States if it just come down to a push and shove contest. So why are they boasting? Why are they flexing now, out of all times? It could be some backdoor dealings going on, And they're going to leave the Statue of Liberty with her cross-dressing ass hung out to dry. Like I say, the Lord is going to use these kings, these other nations, to fulfill his will. The Pacific Showdown, U.S.-China war over Taiwan is imminent. Check this out.
While the world is caught up with Ukraine, another battlefield is being prepared. Tensions are rising in the Pacific. China has driven away an American destroyer. Beijing says it illegally entered the South China Sea. The US is setting up new military bases in the Philippines, very close to Taiwan. China is lapping up port projects in Pacific Islands. Both sides are marking their territory and setting up military facilities. The US and China are preparing for war, a war over Taiwan. It won't happen tomorrow, but the US says it will happen. And the preparation is on war footing. Today, the navies of the US and China came face to face. An American destroyer entered the waters around the Paracel Islands. This is in the South China Sea. The Paracel Islands is an archipelago. It is a group of about 130 small coral islands and reefs. What was the US warship doing there? The US Navy said it was on a routine operation. But China contests this claim. It says the US destroyer entered the waters illegally and that China has driven away the American warship. The Americans, of course, have not agreed to this claim. They say there was nothing illegal about their activities in this region. But the South China Sea, we know, remains a major flashpoint, and the Americans are expanding their access here. They've struck a deal with the Philippines. This is to expand their military presence in North Philippines. Remember, the US already has bases in this country. Now they'll get more access. Reports say 3 military sites are being considered. 2 are in northern Philippines, and these are very close to Taiwan. The 3rd site is closer to the South China Sea. So the gains for the US are obvious. It will increase its military presence in this region. It can mobilize in larger numbers in the event of a war. As for the Chinese, their response to the deal is on expected lines.
China has always believed that defense and security cooperation between countries should be conducive to regional peace and stability and should not target or harm the interests of third parties. The US side has been strengthening its military deployment in the region out of its own selfish interests and with a zero-sum mindset.
And that Zeno mindset goes into a fearful mindset. And he's spot on when he's talking about how selfish these damn Edomites are. Now, I say that with a little sarcasm because all of these damn heathens, have a level of being selfish. But in the end, like I said, the Lord is just using them to fulfill his will.
Beijing is responding not just with words. The PLA has stepped up activities around Taiwan. Almost every day it sends warships and warplanes. And they don't do very much. They just come close to the island of Taiwan. They register their presence, stick around just long enough for Taiwan to take notice, and then they leave. These are intimidation tactics. Earlier this week, Taiwan detected 10 Chinese military aircraft and 2 naval vessels. So far this month, Beijing has sent at least 292 military aircraft and 76 naval vessels. And how does Taiwan respond to this? With military drills of its own. The latest ones happened in North Taiwan. Military tanks were spotted rolling down the streets there. They were conducting what are called anti-landing exercises, specifically designed to deter a potential Chinese invasion.
Hey, they're getting ready. Anti-land evasion tactics.
But why is the situation escalating now? Because the Taiwanese president is traveling to the US.
The trip will kick off on March 29th with a transit through New York on the same day. After this, she will continue her journey to Guatemala and Belize to conduct exchanges with the 2 allied nations. On the trip back, there will be a stopover in Los Angeles.
She will make 2 stops in the US and also visit Guatemala and Belize. These are diplomatic allies of Taiwan. In the US, President Tsai could meet Kevin McCarthy, the current US House Speaker. Washington is trying to paint this as an unofficial stop.
There's no reason for China to over.
Now listen, just look at the smirk on his face. Check him out. Check him out. Now, the United States, so these Edomites over in the West, they're good at provoking things and being, you know, how that old saying, what you say, throw the rock and hide your hand. They have mastered it. At the same time, it's old, you know, it's an old tactic. But I say they have mastered it because just check out the facial expressions and the body languages. This is I think he's the Secretary of the Press, and you're gonna see Secretary of State. Just check out that body language. You know what I'm talking about? Because now these are tactics that they're using to provoke. You heard what the journalist said, that the president said there's gonna be war with China. See, Biden is good for goofing up and saying things prematurely. You follow what I'm saying? How do you know? Because the United States is going to goat them. It's going to provoke them. But at the same time, they're going to be playing, you know, well, you know, this, that, and the third, you know, playing like they, you know, they just innocent, you know, like they the victim. But anyway, check this out.
Kevin McCarthy, the current U.S. House Speaker. Washington is trying to paint this as an unofficial stop.
There's no reason for China to overreact. Heck, there's no reason for them to react. I mean, this is something that, as I said, is commonplace. It has happened before, will likely happen again. It's personal, it's unofficial. There should be no reason for Beijing to react in any way to this.
China is not convinced, though. It is shooting warnings to both Washington and Taipei.
We again warn the Taiwan authorities that there is no way out for Taiwan independence. And any
And check out how serious China is, you know. The U.S. over there playing like, hey, man, it ain't nothing. We just old buddies, you know. We're going to crack open a bottle of champagne and, you know, sit back and wrap a taste, you know. Like you said, China ain't buying it. See, because the United States is provoking them. They poking at them, you know. They poking them. Like I say, Biden had already spilled the beans. It's going to be war with China. But then his cabinet, they over there playing it cool and smooth. But, you know, somebody got to put a gag on Biden because he you know, a video camera is his worst enemy. Let's keep going.
China is not convinced, though. It is shooting warnings to both Washington and Taipei.
we again warn the Taiwan authorities that there is no way out for Taiwan independence. And any illusions about attempts to collude with external forces to seek independence and provocation is doomed to fail.
Such unofficial visits have happened in the past too, and this one will go ahead in all likelihood. So Beijing is throwing a tantrum, conducting more military drills. The US intelligence community says it is also preparing for war. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has backed their assessment. He says China will invade Taiwan before 2027, and the fate of the Ukraine war will guide China's strategy. China is tracking the conflict and taking lessons from it.
I think if China is looking at this, and they are looking at it very carefully, they will draw lessons for how the world comes together or doesn't.
There are good reasons to be worried.
Now, that was very interesting. They would take lessons on how the world comes together. How the world comes together or doesn't. Now, that's going to come back and bite America in the ass. Because when it's all said and done, like I say, this is the will of the Lord being fulfilled. And he's using these kings, these heads of state, to do so, to bring this place down. He says China's going to learn a lesson from this, how the world comes together or doesn't. Now, he just don't know he stuck his foot in his own mouth, as they always do.
The conflict in the South China Sea is very much alive. China claims almost the entire sea. 5 other countries have competing claims, sometimes.
Okay, that's enough on that. I want to show you a video, Salakia. I want to show you a video where the United States, this word, is showing some concern about this. They're not. The Biden administration is not fully on code as far as their body language and the things that they're saying that's coming out of his administration, and concerns with the coming together of the countries in the Middle East, being hosted by China and Russia, India, Syria, what it is, all the Iran. These people are bearing the hatchet for us, lack of better words, for a common goal, and that's to derail or defeat the West. And like I said, this is all the will of the Lord being acted out. Now, I want to show you this little clip where it shows a U.S. general speaking about this, and he's gonna say it out of his own mouth how this is troubling the things that are happening in the Middle East, to show you that they put on that facade, they got that poker face, but truth be told, they're gonna have that Freudian slip. They're gonna say things that they're meant to say, but they don't really want to say, and hope that you don't catch it.
To address a report which he submitted in which he warned that Iran was no longer deterred vis-a-vis the United States, which effectively triggered a rise of attacks against U.S. forces throughout the region.
Currently, right now, we see their malign activity is increasing. We see them again in the last 90 days. We have some of the highest numbers of our advanced conventional weapons and munitions that we've seen going from Iran to Yemen. We see their attacks on our U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria increasing, and we see the threat streams that I can talk about in a higher classification. I can't say the exact reason why they feel that, but I know right now when I look at them, I believe they are undeterred.
Well, General Kurilla naturally stopped short from making any political statements related to the cause of Iran's emboldened activities. Republican Senator Tom Cotton, who posed the previous line of questioning, pointed to the fact that the loss of deterrence essentially coincided with the Biden administration taking office a little over 2 years ago. And while U.S. officials had repeatedly highlighted Washington's intentions to maintain a presence in the Middle East, a number of political decisions that were enacted by the Biden administration since its first days in office were interpreted by Washington's regional partners as American efforts to disengage from the Middle East. Among others, the referred to decisions include the American administration's initial declaration to pivot eastward amid strategic competition vis-a-vis China, which also included, of course, the decision to disengage from Afghanistan, alongside its choice to revoke the Trump administration's terror designation of the Iranian-backed Houthi militia, or Ansar Allah, despite repeated attacks against U.S. partners in the Gulf, coupled with the Biden administration's fixation to revive the so-called 2015 nuclear agreement with Iran, or JCPOA, at almost any cost. As a result, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia agreed to normalize relations with Iran as part of a Chinese brokered deal. And while the rapprochement between Tehran and Riyadh is seemingly troubling for both Washington and Jerusalem, General Kurilla...
See that? It seeming to be troublesome. That's troubling to the United States and Israel and those Israelis. Now, mind you, the so-called Jewish people in our land over there, those imposters, they're going to ride until the ship fall out with the United States. They're like two peas in a pod. But the point being is that the relationship that is being built by so-called enemies that have been enemies in the Arab world, they're coming back together now, And that right there is stirring up I would say, an emotion of fear amongst the Israelis and the Americans. Let's say that one more time, and we're going to go and let this play.
Saudi Arabia agreed to normalize relations with Iran as part of a Chinese brokered deal. And while the rapprochement between Tehran and Riyadh is seemingly troubling for both Washington and Jerusalem, General Kurilla highlighted that a gap remains between reaching an agreement and its implementation.
Now, mind you, this general is going to try to play that relationship, the relationship building between the countries there in the Middle East that have been beefing with one another. He's going to try to play that down or try to take the air out of it as though, they've shook hands in the past while they were shooting at one another at the same time type of deal. But then in the end, he's going to express how they really feel about this relationship being kindled amongst the Arab world. Although he's going to try to play it down as though it ain't nothing but a thing. Hey, they be shooting guns at one another and signing treaties at the same time type of deal. But like I say, the following statements are really going to express how the U.S. and the so-called Israelis, or the so-called Jewish people, really feel about this.
Nevertheless, China's growing role in the region is a source of concern for both practitioners in Washington as well as officers at the U.S. Central Command.
I believe this is the talks about opening diplomatic relations, so much as this is not an alliance between Saudi Arabia and Iran. They have had diplomatic relations in the past while they were still shooting at each other in the past. So this is really about opening embassies and opening diplomatic relations when they closed the embassies back in 2016. What this does do, though, is with China, the most concerning part about this is that China is the one brokering this, because it shows that they are bringing the diplomatic aspect of their national instruments of power. And what we see with China on the military side is that they have a significant increase in bringing their equipment into the region and their foreign military sales. And if there's Chinese equipment there, we cannot integrate it with U.S. equipment.
Alongside China's growing influence in the greater Middle East, General Kurilla was also asked about Russia's deepening relations with Iran and whether the United States could mitigate the regional impact of these bolstered ties.
So it is very concerning anytime we see adversaries working together. We do know.
You heard that? It is very concerning whenever we see adversaries working together. You know why it's very concerning? Because they've spent so much time, effort, blood, sweat, tears into creating those rifts and those rafts between those adversaries. And now they start those adversaries through the spirit of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua, Joel 2:28, the Lord shall pour his spirit out on all flesh, and they shall see dreams and this, that, and the third. And not only that, Proverbs 21:1, where the Lord, the king, the minds of the kings are in the hands of the Lord. No matter what these knuckle dragging cave maggots do, they're not going to upset prophecy. They're not going to upset the will of the Lord. So you heard it from him saying it's very concerning to see adversaries coming together, because the underlying fact is that they, being the United States, the Western powers, and those that back them, have spent a lot of time, effort, money, a lot of killing, a lot of murder, a lot of tricks, and all of these, and pull out all the stops to create these rifts and these rafts. And in the end, all that happens is that they become mended, for lack of better words, because we know the Lord, this is the will of the Lord. One more time, we're going to go to a precept, and we're going to close out.
Relations with Iran and whether the United States could mitigate the regional impact of these bolstered ties.
So it is very concerning anytime we see adversaries working together. We do know that they have shipped hundreds of their advanced unmanned aerial vehicles to the Ukraine. These are the same ones that have hit our service members in both Iraq and in Syria. They are improving upon them based on what they are learning inside the Ukraine. I am concerned then with the support that Russia can give back. As you know, the Iran state media announced the approval of, don't know the exact number yet, what will come out of the agreement, but the Su-35, which is a 4th Gen Plus fighter, which has a lot of our partners in the region concerned as well. Chairman, I think this will take a whole of government approach to include all of the instruments of national power on this to be able to prevent that.
To be able to prevent that. You're not going to be able to prevent it. They're not going to be able to prevent it. It's over. It's over. Let's grab a few precepts, shall we? You're not going to be able to prevent anything. You're not going to be able to prevent a damn thing. And that's the irony of it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I quoted the scripture. But this is also in Acts. I think Paul or Peter, I think it was Peter spoke this. In Acts 2, I believe. When the men of Israel came to Israel, to the land of Israel, to promise of the Spirit. This is Joel 2 and 28, and it reads, "And it shall come to pass afterwards that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh. The Lord shall pour out his spirit." The Lord is controlling. Not them. The Lord is. The Lord is controlling, not them. It's concerning. Yeah, it's very concerning to you because, like I said, they have put in so much time, effort over the generations to create these rifts, to create these separations, to only see in the end that they're starting to mend. They're starting to mend themselves up. You know how you get a scratch? That skin has been separated, but if you leave it alone there, it starts mending itself. You don't have to do nothing to it. That's the Lord doing that. You don't have to put no alcohol on it or nothing. That scratch you get on your skin, it's going to, you scab your skin. The scab come over it and everything. And after a while, the scab fall off and everything been mended back because that's the Lord. The same way you see that they've created scabs and tears and relationships, the Lord is mending them for his purpose. This is Joel 2 and 28, and it says, "And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions." Shall see visions. I quoted another one. Let's go real quick. This is Proverbs 21 and 1, and it reads, it says, "The king's heart is mine. His mind is in the hand of the Lord Yahweh. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever so he will." So, and check this out, verse 2, and it says, every way of a man is right in his own eyes. So they think that they got this together, you know what I'm talking about? But the Lord Yahweh ponders the heart. He ponders the mind. He deals with the mind. He is the Father of spirits. Matter of fact, let me grab that real quick. He is the Father of spirits. Not you. You're not doing nothing. I see what it is. I think it's 9. Let me see. 9 and 12. One of the two. Here it is right here. This is Hebrews 12 and 9. It reads, "Furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh which corrected us, and we gave them reverence. We respected them. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live?" So he puts the spirit on these leaders to bring forth his will. We'll close out with this one. This is Revelation 17. And I'm going to get straight to the point down here. I'm going to read these right here. It says, this is Revelation chapter 12 and chapter 17 of 12, and it reads, it says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest, and 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings for 1 hour with the beast." And this is that little coming together, for lack of better words. These people coming together doing that thing to try to hold down the nation of Israel, to keep us from knowing who we actually are. Going back to pursuing to Psalms 83, where Israel will be in remembrance no more. In other words, we wouldn't know who we are. And all of these different nations, these heathen nations, have come together with one pact to do so. Now, mind you, they have problems with one another. But when it comes to putting the foot down on you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, no matter where you at in the world, they on board with that. You understand? It says, "These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast." And they've done this for so long. They sold out their countries, their traditions, their heritage, to even look like this so-called white man. When you look at the Chinese, man, you look at some of those old Chinese movies and whatnot, Japanese movies, they walk around in traditional garbs and gis and whatnot like their forefathers wore. But nowadays, they look like businessmen that walk on Wall Street, New York City look like it's in Beijing, China, with all the McDonald's and the scenery that you see here in the West, you see that spewed throughout the whole planet, man, because of the trade agreements and the gifts and knickknacks and whatever, they had going on. All that's played out because the will of the Lord is being acted out. And, like I say, these kings, these heads of state are going to bring forth the will of the Lord because it's his will. Verse 14, and it reads, these shall make war with the Lamb, and that Lamb we're talking about our Lord and Savior, Yahushua, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called the chosen and faithful. And that's going into those angels, the heavenly host, and Lord willing, the 1/3 of the nation of Israel, the chosen, the elect. Verse 15, and it reads, and he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are people and multitudes and nations and tongues. Now, mind you, the United States is made of all different types of nationalities. But beyond that, the United States has embassies. You heard them say that they have a military base over there in the Philippines. They have these bases all over the world. And by way of their military, they can enact their rule. They can, promote democracy on people. You know what I'm talking about? They can push it. They can actually enforce it by way of their military. And verse 6, and it reads, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. And that's what you're seeing, But this is pursuant to an ancient deal. But this is what we're seeing acted out as well today. And shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Verse 17, here's the point. For Yahweh had put in their hearts and their minds to fulfill his will. This is the Lord's will. What you're seeing, these relationships that are troubling the West and their militaries and their allies like Israel, the Israelis. This is the will of the Lord. Something that they haven't, or they pretend to haven't figured into their whole scheme of things. Verse 17, for God had put in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of God shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is the great city. And that great city is talking about America, which reigneth over kings on the earth, of the earth. So we're seeing the Lord's will being played out in prophecy. We're seeing these things. We're seeing the mended relationships. They've given up their kingdoms to this beast, to this system, to this white man and his system of doing things until the time of the Lord, till the word has gotten out. Now, the Lord is going to, he's steady using them to bring forth his will. Lord willing, it was edified. I want to close out. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High and the Son, Yahweh, Bashem, Yahushua. Double honors to the Apostle Elders, great millstone. Shalom.